Alright, it's already recording. So, I was trying to find more information about you, but I noticed that on Twitch there's not much. Would you like to start by giving some context of your gaming experience and your cards gaming experience? And your context in Magic also, specifically?
So yeah, I didn't want to put like too much on Twitch, because I think it's more like people gonna see, they're gonna see what they get, and if they like it, they like it. Otherwise, they can go away, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it would be good to like get some reference from the past, but I mean, they can just also ask, right? That's the whole thing about Twitch. People can just interact right away. If they have questions, they can ask. I'm gonna answer, right? But yeah, and now that you're asking, like in Magic, in my Magic like career, I started like really kind of early, like 6th grade, 7th grade in school. That means I was like 12, and now I'm 33, so that's like what, almost 20, more than 20 years now. But I did start really slowly, like like kids playing in school with I don't know, whatever you bought. I know I had a deck where I had black cards in, and I didn't have swamps, right? I just got like the whole pile jammed together, and that's how we played, right? You got unlucky if you drew your black cards, but you still had them in because they were cool and they looked cool.
That's the pure Magic, when you just really play for a while. It's cool and what you like, and not like trying to optimize or having super efficiency.
Yeah, it was like just a game, like I don't know, like you would buy I don't know, just like a standalone game, right, in the store. I mean, it had boosters and all, and then we combined the cards together. But we didn't know what Magic is. It was just something that our basically kids store or whatever sold, and we bought that, and it had cool pictures. And like I'm not like native English speaker, so we kind of like even interpreted some of the words or like some of the text on our own. We knew English, but we didn't know it like well as kids.
Was it not translated into your language?
No, I'm from Slovene, so it's like the closest it is like we live really close to Austrian border. So German is like, I guess, the closest language I would get here, but actually at that point I knew better English than German.
Oh.
But it was funny because like some kids in school bought cards from Austria, which is really close from here, and they got German cards, and then we get like both cards mixed together. But we still like I don't know, like the funny example would be like Llanowar Elf just searched for a forest for us or something like that. That's how we thought it works.
Yeah, your own rules.
Yeah, we made our own games.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I started playing around the same time. I'm 31 now, and I started very early when I was 5, 6. So it was more or less the same Magic as you're describing. For me, I am 1 aunt of mine will give me 1 pack a week if I was lucky. And every time I got 1 pack, I didn't even know about the cards. I was just looking at the images, reading the descriptions, like the flavor text below, and just putting a deck together and playing against my friends and my cousins. It was
I guess that's like how most people started, like those who started really young. Like now it's maybe different because we get all the info from like or I mean the kids get the info from the internet and stuff, and so they can like once they get into the game they can already search up for a tutorial and just play it on like a way higher level than maybe we did.
Yeah. So more recently, how much have you been playing Magic?
Like
or adult life, like competitive Magic, so to say, or a Magic
like
Arena.
Right now I'm not really like real life Magic player anymore. I mean, I own the collection still from the past, but I kind of stopped playing real life Magic when the COVID kicked in. Like before COVID, like I don't know, from I don't know 2014 I guess, or 2013 to when was COVID? Like 2019, right?
Yeah.
I just like visited.
The first lockdown was March 2020.
Oh, 2020. No, but yeah, until I think my last GP or last PT was 2019, I think.
So you were playing pro?
I mean, not like really pro. I didn't make a living out of it, but I just like went to almost every GP in Europe. or at least the ones I could afford, because like some countries are still more expensive. Some plane tickets are more expensive, and like traveling was expensive. So the travels I could afford, I went there, and I did like manage to get to few PTs. I didn't like do really well at the PT, but I did pretty well, I think, at GPs. Like altogether, I have like I think 2 GP top 8s, national attendance. Like what are these? Not national. World Cup attendance or whatever that is.
Really?
So that counted. I think that back in the days that counted as a PT. Like the World Cup tournament was almost like a PT. But that's about it. And on PT, I didn't really like do that well. I have like a day 2 or something, and that's about it.
That's pretty impressive still. I imagine the competition must be really fierce at those events. I was going also around Europe before COVID in some Grand Prixes. It's not the PTs, of course, it's just like casual play. And even at those more casual environments, there was a lot of competition and a lot of really good players that just gather and try their best to win.
Yeah.
But then, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering, in Arena, you play limited, you play constructed, you hit at least, I think you hit Mythic in both, and you are an infinite drafter, so to say. Like you accumulate more gems than you spend.
Yeah, I mean my win, like I usually look at this as my win percent, how high my win percentage is, right? And if your win percentage is like, I think around 65%, in limited, you're gonna go infinite. Like I think you need like 62 to reach the 5 wins. So like above 62, but there's some variance, I think. And so for instance, when you reach, I don't know, 2 wins and all losses, you're gonna lose way more than, for instance, if you go 7 wins, right? So I think you need above 62%. So it would be like 65, I think, around there. And yeah, that is like around my win ratio right now, or my career win ratio even.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And also impressive the fact that you play so many formats. Usually the streamers, or usually let's say drafters, the limited players, they usually focus on one, but you allocate your attention to all this. So it raises me a few questions that I think is quite interesting. First will be like, what makes you attracted to so many formats? What makes you enjoy?
Well, just from competitive standpoint, I think I like constructed more. Like for instance, if I would play, if I would choose to play a high level tournament, and they would ask me what would you rather play, limited or constructed, I would choose constructed. Because there's more to it than just like playing the actual tournament. You have to prepare, right? You can gain the edge by just reading the meta, like making a good sideboard, and then like there are equal decks, like equal power level decks, and the level with more the player with more skill will just be will gain more edge there, I think. And I like, even if I'm not the best there, it will be a better indicator how good I am at Magic, right? And I just like that challenge more. And I think that's just like more depth to constructed and limited in like high competitive.
Right. Would you say that at the very top, the skill ceiling is higher in constructed then?
I think so, yeah. Because you have to. There's more multiple layers to it. Like I know you have to prepare for limited as well, obviously, but it's like really like it can be more like variance is more impactful like on the day of the tournament, right? Because you can just open badly, somebody will get an insane rare, somebody will draw like the best part of their deck or stuff like that, and it can just ruin you on that particular day, right? But in constructed, like everything is like the whole deck is like you just get the best cards right together. You're not gonna play cards that are like actively bad, right? Well, in limited, you sometimes have to do that.
That's good. That's fantastic to hear. I've heard people express the opposite opinion, which might be fair, and it's great to have diversity of perspectives. Some people argue that the fact that you can already take your own deck makes it simpler because you just focus on the navigation. Like the meta is kind of found, you just find a good deck that works for you, and you just have this limited number of plays that you can make. Whereas they argue that in limited, you're dealing with the unexpected behavior. But what you say also makes sense, and I agree, that you need to first choose the cards. I imagine that at the top level, you're just not picking the tier 1 deck. You need to actually tailor it to the specific competition you're participating and tailor it to the meta that is really specific to that tournament, where you know it's going to be only top players. And
yeah, I mean, and that, like, you probably, like, people that didn't really go too deep into constructed, like, are saying that, and I can understand that. It's totally normal, right? Because, like, when like, for instance, a limited, like, a casual player is touching constructed, they're gonna net deck, right? They're gonna pick the deck and just play it, and whenever something goes wrong, they're gonna either blame it on luck or just say it, oh, there's not much to construct it, I'm gonna move away, right? But there's, like, so many different scenarios. For instance, I don't know, like, I would have to go to concrete examples, but, like, there are, you have to know, like, certain patterns, how to play, for instance, what card to play first, what to play around against a certain deck, right? And then there are, like, multiple of those decks, right? So, like, each turn, different like decision makings will just like what to play. Like, for instance, like, you have really focused decks where you have, like, I don't know, 5-6 different 2 or 3 drops, and you're gonna, like, draw multiple of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to make a decision which one to play on turn 2, right? And how, like, that's like, if you don't know what you're facing, what deck you're facing, what the meta is, you can just, like, randomly jam a card and it's not gonna be a decision, right? But when you know what you're playing against and stuff like that, you're gonna have to think about it, and, like, you get the edge. That's just like I'm explaining it super poorly here, but there are on, like, there's just more decisions to it than people, like, give like constructed credit to, because they just haven't going that deep into it.
I understand what you're saying. It's the decisions you make are more complex because the decks themselves are more complex. There's a lot of interactions. The fact that you can put 4 cards of each makes the decks more interactive, and there's more connections between the cards. So, and then if you also have the sideboard, if you play best of 3, which in the arena ladder people might play or might not play. From my understanding, the best of 3 is a bit dead queue, or there's a lot fewer people, so the majority of players play best of 1. So that also
you just have to, first of all, you have to have more cards, right, for best of 3. So usually wild cards are something people don't want to invest into, right? Because, like, once you invest into a wild card, you cannot get it back, right? Or once you craft a wild card, you cannot get it back. So they would rather play best of 1 just so they can save those 15 wild cards, right? And then they can, like, switch between decks, which kind of makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of sad because, like, best of 1 compared to best of 3 constructed is a whole different planet. Like, best of 1, it's you really lose the best part about it, what actually negates the variance, which is, like, game 2 and game 3, where if you know what you're doing, you're gonna just get the edge, like, sideboard correctly, and have, like, a completely different deck. Because, like, when you look at it, changing 15 cards that could be completely dead against, like, a certain matchup, or, like, changing even 10 cards or something that are completely against certain matchup, you're just gonna get such an edge, and be even, like, could switch, like, from a unfavorable matchup to a favorable matchup post board.
Yeah,
and that you cannot do in best of 1.
Some people say that the real Magic is best of 3, and just best of 1 is something that is like an abomination for Magic, just a random throw the dice.
I mean, it's a different game. Like, it's a different design. It's maybe a more better suited for modern era where people play on mobile. Like, the schedules of people are way more just way more intense, and they don't have like, because you have to commit, like, half an hour for a best of 3 game, like, or even more.
Yeah,
so
if you get a control deck, or even if you play with or against a control deck, it's hell, man. You just play one game and you're tired, and then even if you win or lose, you have to play another game, or up to 2 games. It's a lot. I understand also that many people say or use the time argument, and I think it's pretty valid, as you say. Like, half an hour for one game is a lot of time, and there's no accident that rush decks of aggro decks are popular. People just want fast games, fast wins, log in, log out.
Yeah, plus in best of one, like aggro is usually just like in those terms is better because all the cards do the same thing, right? You want to deploy a creature on curve and like maybe use some removal and attack, and that's it. Like you're not gonna have like in a control where, for instance, you have a 6-mana insane draw spell, which is completely bad against like an aggro deck, right? And you're gonna in best of one play against aggro. You're gonna have a dead card in the in the deck. Well, for aggro, it doesn't matter. The creature is a creature on 2/3. It can attack. That's it, right?
So in terms of constructed in Arena, you play mostly Standard and Explorer, correct?
I kind of play every format, but depends how good it is, how well I like it at the point. So for instance, like right now, I prefer Explorer over everything. But there was a time when I just like Historic more than anything, or even Standard. Usually comes down to basically, if I figure out a deck, even if it's not my brew, it's maybe something that I tweaked enough, right? Just don't like straight up net decking because it's not fun for me. I would maybe do that for a big tournament, but not for Arena. So if I don't figure out a deck that can win enough games by myself, I just won't like the format. So that's basically my standard for the format. And as long as I can, like right now in standards, I try to brew some like mono red stuff. I try to brew some stuff, but it just doesn't come close to what people have figured out already. Because there was so much repetition put in, so many thoughts were put in those decks that they are just like so standard is solved. And even if I would brew right now, I could win some games, but I just wouldn't be satisfied. Like, cause it wouldn't be like a tier 1 deck that would maybe could maybe spike a tournament or something.
So your liking changes according to your win rate, and you like the most when you're winning the most.
Yeah, but I also don't want to win with, and especially in constructed on like a competition like on Arena, because it's not like, let's be honest, it's not like a PT or something. It's not, nothing is really on the line, right? The best you can do is get into, I don't know, top 10, and then it's a personal satisfaction, right? That's about it. So I don't want to win with something that already like exists.
Yeah, and probably basically. As a streamer, you also want to make something or play something fun to be appealing to your audience, and not just try hard one boring deck that will get you the win rate.
Yeah, well, that's obviously true. It's gonna be way more appealing to the audience if I do something that nobody else does. But it's, first of all, it's more appealing to me as well. I feel smarter about that if I do something like that. I know it sounds stupid, but
no, it doesn't sound stupid. It sounds perfectly reasonable. That's the relationship between effort and achievement. If you just achieve something with no effort, which in Magic will translate to net decking. Like you net deck something, you get 100% win rate. Okay, it might be fun for a bit, you get those wins, but it might feel a bit void. It's not the same as when you twist a deck, you compare the cards, you experiment the builds, and then you come with something with, let's say, 80, what I was going to say 80, just to compare to the other with 90, but these are not realistic win rates in Magic. Okay, let's say a more realistic win rate in Magic would be like 55, I will say, something very good. And you could net deck something for 59. Even if the win rate is lower, it's a lot more meaningful for you because it was a product of your own sweat. So that's
exactly. Plus, by the way, Arena still has this. It doesn't have like shared deck list, right? For instance, when you play someone on the ladder, you won't see their deck list. Mm-hmm. So it actually, there is some advantage when people don't know what they're playing against. So if you play something that doesn't exist, others will make more mistakes. Same goes like if I would play against something that I don't know what exactly what 60 cards it contains, I would play way worse. And that's like, for instance, that aspect on like PTs, or like they call it Mythic Championship now or whatever, during the COVID, that aspect got completely negated because like there was shared deck list on MTG Melee. Like everybody saw each other's deck list. On Arena, that's still not the case. But the thing is, back in the days, people that brought like brews to the PTs actually won some games because others didn't know what they played against. Now that aspect is completely gone, so it's just like it's just better expected value to net deck and completely learn the deck and tune it to the meta, right? And have like a perfect sideboard or a good sideboard against the matchups that you expect.
So it's just better value. They killed the element of surprise, basically.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
exactly.
So right now in Arena, which decks would you recommend for Standard and Explorer? For people that just want to tune in and get a deck that is successful, that gives them results? Based on your experience of what you've been experimenting, what would you recommend?
Well, honestly, I haven't played a lot of Standard. I know which decks there are, and I'm pretty sure if you pick up, there's the Vampire deck, the Grixis Vampire deck. You could play like a mono green list. You could play red white aggro, and any of these tier 1 decks are probably good enough if you learn how to play them. But I honestly don't know enough about Standard to say which one is like the actual best one.
Okay, but you're more comfortable with Explorer. Sorry.
Yeah, I did play like a lot of Explorer, and I was really high on the list. Like I created and I wrote about it on MTG Arena Zone, and other people did a lot. Did really good with it. It's not really like my idea or anything. It's just a mono green stompy list, which existed before, but I basically brought it in from Historic. I played this in Historic, like other people played that in Historic before, and I tuned it to Explorer. That was my basically, how do you say, like, that's how I contributed to Explorer. But there are definitely other decks, like Red Black is right now a tier 1 deck, and you cannot really go wrong with it. It just can win every matchup, and it has a good sideboard. It's not like insanely favorable against anything, but it has a good matchup against like most of the decks, right? There's like Grease Fang combo deck, which is also really good. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I would just pick mono green, and if anyone wants to read about it, it's on MTG Arena Zone. So I state all the reasons for why that is a good choice in there.
Yeah, mono green is maybe one of the most straightforward decks you can play. Maybe in addition to mono white. Honestly,
it is a pretty easy deck to navigate. Yeah, it has like a simple one-dimensional plan, curve out and try to win before they can stabilize. Basically, that's about it.
Yeah, awesome. And one thing that also amazes me, the fact that you play many formats, is that you're very good at all those formats, limited included. In limited, so many players that dedicate so much time to try to become infinite drafters, and they fail. And other players also try to reach Mythic in Constructed, and they cannot. And you can draft very well, and you can play Constructed very well. And do you think that if you would only focus on one format, would you even be better than what you are now? Because usually when people dedicate their attention to many things, they cannot get excellent at one thing. They get good at all of them, but not really the best at one. But you seem to be achieving good results in all of them.
Well, first of all, if I would focus only on limited, which as a casual format I prefer more. I prefer Constructed more as a competitive format, but limited, if I would play with my friends, or if I would choose what to play, like when I play on mobile or whatever, I will always choose limited. But I would just get bored of it if I played only limited. So that's one of the reasons to go for other formats. Because, like, to be fair, we get to play so much Magic now with Arena that it's like there's not really that much to it. Like, at one point you figure out the format, you figure out a limited format, and you're not gonna figure out like really that like it's the same. Like, for instance, New Capenna got solved. You know which decks are good. You know which cards are good. You know what cards are performing. It's not really gonna change that much if you play that format now for two more months or something. You're not gonna really have like that drastic of a like changed opinion on the format, right? So that's one of the reasons to go for Constructed. But also I do think that, like, actually, if as a limited player you'll play Constructed, you're gonna benefit from like you're gonna transfer that into your limited game, or other ways around. I'll give you an example. For instance, if you play a lot of Constructed, you're gonna see how like a cohesive deck works, right? How a really good tuned deck works, and you're gonna lean when you're drafting towards having the perfect build of your deck, to have like a card combined with another card, rather than go for like the purest percentage, like I don't know how good a card is in vacuum, like read from 17 lands and stuff. You're gonna rather make a deck like from like how the cards combine with each other, right? And I think that mindset, you will just get that from constructed way more, because otherwise you don't get the context how a really cohesive deck works.
Would you say that is valid even if we don't get the cards that you use in constructed, even if you don't open those packs in limited? Does that skill still transfer?
Yeah, I mean, of course it is, like, right, you just like the whole power level decreases, right?
Yes.
So like a less powerful card will just be, I know, like, I mean, if you compare like a constructed good cards, like, I don't know, you obviously won't play with the same cards, but it will just like like a medium card will still be a card, right? And a playable card, and as long as it's playable, you're gonna find the space for it in limited. I don't know how to put it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it's just that it seems to me that it's harder to go from constructed to limited than from limited to constructed. You said that the power level decreases, and I think it's harder to deal with that shock rather than if you go the other way around, from limited to constructed, you just increase. So
but the thing is, in constructed, you're gonna play against other powerful cards, right? Equally powerful. In limited, you're gonna play with medium cards, but the other cards will be also medium, right? Like, unless you face a bomb and you play your commons, right?
Yeah.
That happens.
At least this is what I was feeling when I go, for instance, I play mostly limited, or I play constructed, just historic brawls or something easy and simple. That is not really your traditional constructed with 4 of each. But I sometimes have to build decks for those events at the middle of the week that are, for instance, the last 3 sets only, or just standard without rares. And in those cases, I feel that playing limited helps me a lot. I know what are the good limited cards, and then I can identify a pair of colors and then build on that base that I already know that works in limited based on the synergies that we learn, and then just put these powerful cards to match the rest and give it more consistency.
Well, yeah, it makes sense, but it kind of transfers the other way around as well, right? Because I think a lot of limited players don't get this like card, how cards combine with each other. They only look at power level and vacuum of a card.
What skill level are you referring to?
Sorry.
What skill level are you referring to when you?
I mean, even like top arena limited players, I would say.
How? Like,
it's just like, I mean, maybe I don't get it. I mean, I watch some I don't want to like. I think a general opinion is just always go for the best card, right? And like, people nitpick from the tier lists, and that's it. But like, I mean, top. I mean, when I'm talking about top, I would say like Mythic, right? I think the top arena players, like, I don't know, top 10% of the top 5% of the drafters, or even less. I don't know, top 1%, whatever you want to put it. Those people are really, really skilled, and they know what I'm talking about here. They know that stuff. They know, like, that's the edge they get from other people, like how they can combine cards together, and how a deck is a deck, and a card in a vacuum is a card in a vacuum, right? And you can only view a tier list for maybe like first few picks, because like everything is separated from the deck, right? Once you start picking a card, next pick will be in correlation to what you already picked, and not like just okay. Like it can, the tier list can completely change, right? For instance, like you have 7 5-drops or 3-drops already, and you see an overseer, but then you see, I don't know, I'll just say a random card. You're in green white. You see the 2/3 blitz card that gets 2 counters, right? And you don't have a single 5-drop or a single like way to have a more powerful Ladian card. Those 3 drops get redundant, and you should be picking the 4/5 or the 2/3 blitz card over the overseer, even though like most of the people will be like completely, how do you say, they will hate you because you made that pick, right?
Yeah, that will be a bait, but that's where maybe the constructed skills come into play. You need to have proper deck building skills. You need to feel the curve.
Yeah, obviously, if you build decks in constructed, I think that's where it really benefits you in limited, because you know how to build the decks. Like, you're picking, but in the constructed you're picking from the whole collection. There you're picking from a booster, which is literally the same, but you're also limited, like on time in limited, right?
Yes.
You have a time restriction.
Well, the time restriction, I don't think it's the worst thing. Usually when you open the pack, you will have in the first 10, 15 seconds, you get a good idea. Okay, then you maybe use the time to think about the ramifications of your decision. Or do I want to go in this direction? Do I want to go in that direction? But yeah, I think the time plays a part, but it's probably not the most influential.
It is sometimes come, yeah, but like, yeah, you get enough time. I never really feel that pressured, honestly, by time, especially when you know the cards. The problem is when you read the cards, but
Yeah.
I don't think anybody that's like good at draft, people usually read the whole set out, right, before the actual draft starts.
Just to clarify, when you said that the top 1% of players really know the interactions, were you referring to the top 1% of drafters overall, or the top 1% of Mythic drafters?
I would say like Mythics, like those people that are always like top 10, right? Those people know what's going on usually.
So would you say that then 99% of Mythic players don't have any clue about the interaction? Not any clue, but they don't really dominate or master the deck.
I don't think they master it. I don't wanna underrate that, because like they still know, like people still know how to draft. Like people know how to read signals. But they like I often see that a lot of these like even like Mythic players won't have the finesse, right? How like the actual like top limited player have, like how to like then fine tune the deck, basically how to really fine tune even during the draft, because you should be building, like if you don't need a card, you don't need it, right? You pick something that maybe has a potential to make the deck. That's the real tricky part, making that decision on spot, right? When you don't need a card, and you people would pick it just because like, okay, it's a good card that like it's considered as a good card. It's in a vacuum a good card, right? But if you're not gonna play it, there's no reason to pick it. Pick something that maybe has a potential to make the deck, right?
Yes.
So this is when it comes like this, like fine tuning to mind.
I see. And those decisions can snowball very quickly. If you make one bad decision, then it influences all the subsequent decisions that you make. So if you're committed into the wrong path without any real information, you keep accumulating those errors. And it can
exactly, and this is how good way how you put it, like, because when you go from here, this is also something, you make your decision, and once you make a decision, like for instance, I don't know, what I see is people read signals, right? But then they still like, they kind of read one color is open, but then they still want to touch like another color, right? If you read the signal, if you're convinced, it's probably better for you to just stay on that path, right? If you're gonna like still like be open, like I don't know, pack 2 at the end of pack 2, you're gonna actually lose relevant picks, right, for the deck. And this is like exactly this thing, like it's maybe in like hindsight, it's really easy to tell where you went wrong, right? But it's the tricky part is to make those decisions on the spot, like so you're basically like it. I usually like to think that I already know how my deck, like I at least have a vision of my deck, even like before I kind of even like make like first few picks. Like when I commit on archetypes, I have a vision of a deck. I have few cards which are gonna dictate how our deck, in which direction my deck goes, right? Is it gonna be aggressive? Is it gonna be like this deck in this specific archetype? And I already know which cards I prefer in that archetypes, right? So I'm gonna make like a preference between, like, I don't know, same color, like if I have multiple picks of the same color and all are strong, right? I'm gonna. I mean, it's obviously not always clear, and and you have to make decisions, but like it's important to have that in mind. I think not just like randomly, okay, this is a strong card, this is a strong card, this like a lot. What I see a lot of people do would be like, I'm gonna quickly look on 17 lands. Oh, that card has a better win ratio, or you're already in like a pack 2 and already have a deck lined up, right? You shouldn't be looking at the stats. You should be comparing the cards you're picking from to what you already have.
Yes. It comes from your experience. You can do that because you know the set very well and you know how the archetypes are built. You know that for Gruul you need certain cards, you know that for Selesnya you need certain cards, and you're already looking for those cards based on your experience.
But I wouldn't even put it that like you kind of put it like really wide in wide range, right? Selesnya. I think like there are certain direction you also want to go in our archetype. For instance, you are in Bant or in green white, let's say in New Capenna, right? You still have like maybe you want to go more towards aggressive. Maybe you go like mid range, splashing bunch of stuff, and then that also like those things also impact like how you pick the cards.
Right.
Not just like a specific archetype like green white. You should also like break it down to like, is your deck more aggressive? Is your deck more controlling? Does your deck need top end? Does your deck have answers? You know what I mean, right? Like some decks you can just get away with basically just a low curve and few tricks. You don't need anything else. You win games. Like that's an aggro deck. Like it's fine.
Yeah, I get what you need. You need really to adjust the type of deck based on the cards you have. For instance, you can have the same pair, black and red, and build it either more control or more aggro. For instance,
a good example is black red, right, in New Capenna, which had complete two different opposite. You could go like black red splash blue and be completely controlling, but you could be this aggro blitz deck, right? And you probably shouldn't be picking your 1/2 Manus blitz creature in a controlling deck because it's gonna be completely useless. Yes. If that makes sense, right? Yes. That's a good example how that card has maybe like insane stats somewhere, but if you're gonna read that tier lists or stats, you're gonna get completely wrecked because you're gonna be like in your removal heavy control deck with bunch of the 2/4s that bring instants or sorceries back and stuff like that, and then you're gonna start picking the 1/2s because you're gonna think it's a good card, but you completely disregarded the context, right?
Yes, that's a very good example. I was also going to get there, and for instance, the involuntary employment, a card that steals creatures from the opponent. It's also more an aggro kind of deck if you combine it, especially with body droppers, right? So if you are a top drafter, you are a top Mythic player, would you put yourself in the boat of the people that understand the deck building or the people that are still trying to grasp it?
Well, I kind of talk a lot about it on stream and stuff, so I would say yes, right? Because otherwise, if I thought I was bad at it, I wouldn't really preach about it, basically.
No offense, man, but it's just that sometimes it's okay to sometimes say that I'm not there, but I'm trying to reach there. It's totally fine.
I obviously am not like I don't think I'm like the best or anything. I think there are way better drafters than I am, especially when you look at the people that are now playing only constructed because they were limited is not a thing on the PT, and those people are just like good Magic players, and and they just don't touch limited now because they like dedicated their time to constructed, right? And there are even in Arena there are players that I cannot like really beat, and that's like even statistically like they have insane stats on 17 lands and they are consistent at it, right? Like you have like people that have like 70% win ratio consistently on Arena. I mean, like during the format, I think there was some like last format in Kamigawa, there were people that had 70.
Wow, 70 is really high.
I mean, lifetime I think it's around 65, which is like 66, something like that. Which is like about my win ratio, but very, like during the set, you have some people that have like close to 70.
For me, that's super impressive, especially for a card game where luck plays a factor. That's extremely high. So if
that indicates that there is stuff that's not variance based, right? Those like they wouldn't have like that consistent of that good of a stats if they were only lucky, right?
Yeah, of course not. Like luck is an excuse people who don't put in the work usually use.
Well,
The
would
harder
agree.
you work, the luckier you get. Also,
I still get tilted though during a single game of Magic, and like you're still gonna get unlucky during a single game. But like when you look at the bigger picture, like the stats can kind of comfort you sometimes in a way when you see your stats. Oh, but my win ratio is not actually that bad, right? And because you can feel about really bad about like one game.
not that bad with 65%. It's okay. So maybe I phrased the question a bit in a weird way. I should have put it in another way. Let me retry. Would you feel comfortable with your level of knowledge in Street of New Capenna?
I'm actually like was kind of bad at New Capenna compared to everything else. Just stat wise, I have like 63 or something. But I don't think there's. I mean, maybe I'm stubborn at it also. But I really haven't figured out how you gain much edge in that format, other than like doing whatever everybody else is doing. Like because usually where I pick my edge and where my strengths are, maybe that's not gonna work for everybody else. It's like I usually pick a deck or pick an archetype or figure out an archetype that nobody drafts and try to make it good. Like for instance, a good example would be Festival Crasher deck in Midnight Hunt, which I mean, other people did draft that, but there were really not a lot of people. Red was considered unplayable in Midnight Hunt almost. Mm-hmm. Or for instance, I used to draft a lot of mono red, but other people did that as well in Kamigawa. I just completely stayed away from other archetypes. I didn't figure something like that in New Capenna. There's just not a deck that would be completely like out of the radar and would be good, or there's just like these good stuff decks and that's it.
In these previous expansions, would you rush or not rush? Would you force these decks?
Yes, absolutely.
So always you start the draft and I'm gonna pick this deck no matter what I get.
Well, I would just change my first few picks for that. Like for instance, I would just make in my mind I would make basically a different tier list. For instance, I'm just valuing cards in that archetypes a bit higher, so I'm gonna pick them over like maybe something that's considered more powerful. Like let's say like there was Kami Flare, right, in Kamigawa.
Yes.
The 3 damage card. I force mono red all the time there.
With the modified.
And I would pick it over, for instance, that's the only first pick. Over like a 1/3. What's the card that killed artifacts? The ninjutsu card, the Kappa Tech Wrecker.
Oh, the Kappa Tech, yeah, the third.
Yeah, I would pick Kami Flare just because I don't want to pass any red signal. Like that's just like I think the edge you get there and you only missed a pick. Like the thing is about the 5 color the thing about 5 color decks or like multicolor decks in Kamigawa was that you still got them together even if you started on pick 4, right? So even if you saw like first 3 picks you didn't get any red cards, okay, I'm back to normal plan. I'm drafting my 4 color pile. I did miss on a Kappa Tech Wrecker, but I don't think that's as devastating as wanting to be in mono red and passing a Kami Flare, because like it's so important that you're the only one of the 2 drafters that draft red maybe in that pod.
So you wanted to be the guy that plays that color no matter the rare that you open, for instance. Let's say you open.
Well, depends what kind of rare is. Like some rares are still too powerful to pass. Like for instance, if you open, I know the Wandering Emperor or something, I would still take that.
Mythic
right?
or the Dragon, yeah, the Mythics.
Yeah, or the Mythics, yeah. But I would usually like just take a red card. It has to be a decently powerful card that you're forcing as well, right? Because if it's something completely garbage, you're not really benefiting, because even if you send that card forward, you're not sending a signal, right? So then you'd rather just nobody's gonna move for like, I don't know, let's say the 3 mana 4/1 in Kamigawa that nobody's gonna
4/1.
There was an artifact like 3 mana 4/1 ogre something. Creature cannot block when it enters the battlefield. I'm bad with the card names. Yeah,
it made so that one creature of the opponent could not block.
Yeah, exactly. So nobody will move into red because of that, right? Okay. So you're basically the higher upside is to pick a card in other color like a really like the actual best card in the pack, just in case you end up in that color. You can still be in red. Like you can still move into red from if the red is open, right? So it's just like people think like when I say like I'm forcing something, they kind of get like scared. Like they get, oh, that's not skill, right? But it's just like this tiny little preference for an archetype, and you just like base your tier list around that. It's not like I'm still like reading the signals, right? I'm still like gonna end up in other decks. It's just like I just have a slight preference.
You said slightly, tiny slight, so it's still a really small push in a direction. It's not a try-hard forcing. Like, I'm just gonna play Samurais in Neo, for instance, or I'm just gonna play Brokers in Streets of New Capenna. You still adjust based on what you see and based on what you get.
Yeah, exactly. You still read the table, yeah.
And that there is probably here where it comes that notion that you were saying earlier, that you need to know the archetypes well enough so that you know which cards are important enough to make you sway in that direction.
Exactly. Plus, the biggest upside from forcing it, you get when you force archetypes that are either considered bad and you figure them out. So, for instance, like red was considered bad for a certain period of time in New Capenna. No, sorry, New Capenna, in Kamigawa.
Yes.
Because it was kind of, first of all, it was hard to play. Because there were like, you had like, I don't know, you had, it was a deck of 1 and 2 drops, right? It was a super aggressive deck. I don't know if you get the context, but...
Yes, with the rabbit batteries and the
you look at the hand. You look at the hand, for instance, and you had like 5 1-drops to play. That's an insane decision to make already, right? And like it like people like, I mean, it was a hard deck to play. Like I punted on it a lot of the times, but also I think the upside of the deck was insane, and like it was a synergistic deck. So it took a while for like drafters to perfect the archetypes. Yeah. It just wasn't like, it's not a deck full of good cards, right?
Yes, it was not like playing the sagas where you just slap the saga on the battlefield and the saga carries you.
So like for a while, drafters that figured out that archetypes just had an edge because nobody else drafted it, and they knew the archetype is good, or we knew the archetype is good, and for a while like you just got like insane win ratio with that deck. So it's like always the better upside to force something that's out of people's radar.
I think that has been happening a bit in Streets of No Capenna. In the first weeks, it was a general consensus that Selesnya and the splash to blue, so the Brokers, was the strongest archetype, and people were sleeping on other alternatives. One example was, for instance, Ekil. Ekil was drafting Junt when everyone was drafting Brokers, and these viewers will tell him, man, why are you not drafting Brokers? It's broken. And and what he was saying, like, no, these cards work perfectly well and these lanes are open, and if you can make a consistent deck with these cards, it works perfectly well and you can win against every other deck. And now I also understand that Grixis is very strong. Some of my best results in Streets of New Capenna are with Grixis. It's very, very powerful deck, and black is very strong. So these are the open lanes that maybe now are starting to be more figured out as the expansion reaches later its lifetime.
Yeah, and like early on, I think this narrative gets like, people settle on this like narrative, what is strong, what like first impression is. Like they settle on it and then they stick to it for a long time. People are stubborn. And if you are just going against what's like really a popular opinion, you have such a high chance that you're just gonna figure out something on your own. So it's like, that's exactly how probably Akil figured that out, or how, like, for instance, I know that Florida Man, which is also a fellow draft labber, he also figured out really early that Grixis is insanely strong. Like, he just drafted Grixis and was like, what are you guys talking about Brokers? It's not that good. Grixis is the best.
Yeah. In that case, how do you gain a good understanding of the set? Based on what you were talking earlier, like the top 1% of mythics that really know the synergies between the cards. How do you really prepare for that?
Just draft and try to be... I mean, I usually just draft. Like, I don't really, like, put too much... like, I don't go through the list, like, 100 times of all cards and then, like, try to... I don't know, even make the decks before I draft. I draft and, like... I try to combine cards together, right? And also, I'm really like, especially at the beginning of the format, I'm open to try stuff that I never tried before. I would actively just pick a card maybe that's considered bad just because it maybe it looks to me it has potential, right? I would try to like build around it. Obviously, it has to be a card that has potential. Like for instance, a good example was Festival Crasher in Midnight Hunt. That was the spell, the 2-drop that spell matter 2-drop, right? It's really easy to build around it, but it actually worked, and then I just started forcing that archetype.
Mm-hmm. Would you do that if you had a limited number of gems, like most people do? You have like a lot, you have infinite gems, so to say, or you can afford to lose a few drafts to try some things. But most people, they just live like paycheck to paycheck in terms of Magic terms.
I mean, but that's how I kind of get the gems, right? I figured that those archetypes out, and then I started winning with them, and then I get the gems. Like I don't know other way how to put it. I mean, you could try to maybe, but the problem is if you're always gonna be the one that follows, right? You're always gonna be a step behind. Like you're not gonna do anything spectacular. Your win ratio will maybe be like 0.5% if you're a better player above like other people, but that's about it. That's not gaining you like insane amount of gems, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Especially if you're just drafting the most drafted colors, you're always going to get dried at the pot.
Because the thing is, like, in Arena, you're still playing against, like, it's different. It's way different when you play against your own pot, right? Because you have the understanding what cards are there, what decks you play against, what you cut, and how you position yourself in one pot. Like, and if you're like a good at reading signals, you're usually gonna be on the better side of the decks in your pot, right? So you got the edge there. But how do you get edge in Arena if you're playing against other pots? You don't really get edge by reading the signals in your pot. Like you maybe get an edge, but you get like a 5% of an edge, right? Oh, no, sorry, 0.5% of an edge or whatever, like 1% of an edge or whatever. But I think like how you really get an edge is like basically going against the whole meta. Like what you think the common perception of other drafters is, and you try to do the opposite thing, but you have to make sure that that thing is also good enough to win games.
And you probably need to make sure that not only you know what that thing is, but you also know what the key pieces of that thing is.
Exactly. So it will, I mean, it will, like, I will lose some gems when I try stuff, but I like to believe that that's like only 1 or 2 drafts. I'm gonna completely train wreck them, but I'm already gonna acknowledge, look, this card is needed, this card is needed, this card is needed, and next time I'm gonna have like I'm gonna be almost there. Like 18 out of like 23 cards are gonna be the cards I want, right? And then I'm gonna like even fine tune it down the line. But it's kind of the same as day one people trying to figure out the format, right? They're still not gonna know about like what's the format like.
That's very amazing, the perspective you have. It's almost like a deck building perspective from constructed.
So yeah, but exactly. That's the relation. I mean, maybe now we actually explain it better because I didn't know how to explain it before. But
no, but it makes sense. Like this tinkering with the cards, seeing what works. Like you put this in, you take this out. It's not the same collection. It's a different set of cards because you have to open new packs. So that's the difference. You don't have the cards granted. You have to go look for the cards. But maybe the identification of the key pieces are really similar. Now, and now exactly. I understand.
and that's like how you have more certainty to get the cards. You kind of want to be like, that's the whole this, like, you want to lean towards the like an archetypes that no other drafters draft. So like that's not a popular archetypes. That's how you are gonna guarantee those cards because they're just gonna be there.
Yeah, which is tricky to say in limited, because the knowledge is constantly evolving. Let's say in the beginning, people are taking a lot of Selesnya, and now people have realized that Jund can work, or that Gruul can work, or that Grixis can work. And now we are in this weird place again where the meta is these alternatives. So what do you do in these cases? You go back to the Selesnya, or do you just draft whatever is open?
That's happened. For instance, in Midnight Hunt, it happened that people picked up on the Festival Crasher deck because I don't know who actually started drafting it first. I think I believe I was one of the first, but like I also saw like I know PG Trick was drafting it. I think like I don't know if I know other streamers were drafting that deck as like at the same time as I started drafting it, because they like just maybe like the idea of that and they figured out it's gonna be good. But like it started happening at the end of the format, you couldn't get a single Festival Crasher anymore unless you opened it. So then it's probably better to move away because like it was such an important piece for that archetype.
Yeah.
But in my experience, this the meta evolves really slowly, especially in limited, because people are stubborn. Like especially like the thing is, you're gonna gain an edge if you just listen to the first narrative, like what's day 1, day 2, day 3 of the format, and that's gonna stick for like a long time. Like that's just gonna stick. Like those deck will be considered the best. Like at least for first month, you can be pretty safe that like what the first week's narrative is gonna stick for the first month.
Yeah, I can imagine how it was. Like people are definitely stubborn, and part of that might be because they don't want to admit that they are wrong or that their understanding is not complete. So they will probably try to force it. Like, no, this works. Instead of admitting, okay, I have to reassess, I have to admit that I don't know everything, and I need to learn again and improve.
Exactly, and there is some like people like to stay in comfort zone, right? And go, and trying different stuff, it's like the complete opposite. And if you want to try, you also like will if you want to just like try new stuff, you also need to prepare yourself to fail, right? You will fail at one point. You can, but then it's like I think like it's definitely worth it to train wreck one draft to have a completely better vision of the format the next draft, right?
Yes, absolutely.
even if it's just like, okay, I tried something and it's not working, I'm not gonna touch it again. Even if you get that knowledge, it's I think a really good insight.
Yeah, you have a pretty chill attitude, and that also translates in the way you draft, I think. I've met other streamers that are usually more analytical. They, for instance, Hekil, he remembers the colors of the packs, he watches on pack 9 what he opens, he tries to actively recall the colors that are not there, so it's like I'm trying to analyze what's open, and he's also very successful, so this is a great approach. But you are also successful, and you don't do this. You just seem to me, at least, that you are more like go with the flow. You know the decks that you want to build, and then you I don't know if it's going to be wrong for me to say this, but you kind of focus on the pack that you have, and you try to pick the best card in the pack for your deck, and you don't overthink too much the cards. You like maybe keep it simple.
Yeah, and also don't think it matters that much, honestly, what you first, second, third pick, because you're gonna like figure out your lane, and then you're gonna build a deck from what you have. Like you're gonna just like pick up the pieces, pick up the Legos, and like put them together. Also, like I try to implement more of that. Like I actually didn't know for a long time. Like what Akil now that I talk to other drafters, I know that Akil told me first, or I watched his stream that like there's only one card. Like there's always one card of from a color in the pack. I didn't know that. I thought like
one common of each color in each pack.
Yeah, with common.
So
yeah,
that gives you the information.
I actually acknowledge that a bit. So I see what's getting taken, right? I actually before, and that was like years into my like competitive Magic career. I don't know if that was the case in physical Magic product. Maybe it wasn't.
I think so.
Or maybe it was. But I actually didn't know that for years and years, and now it's super beneficial to me to know that. I don't like put a lot of thoughts into that, but I still see, okay, the common was taken, that person has taken the let's say red card.
Yeah, I didn't know either. When Akil told me that, I was like, wow, really? It was like discovering something for the first time. It was discovering for the first time. And even I play Magic for years and I drafted in real life. I never had any idea about that. So,
yeah.
But it's just to say, like, your more relaxed approach also works very well. So you have this understanding of the game, and you have this understanding of what will work in your deck, and that's what I think that you focus on. You really know the synergies, and you try to build them. You try to find these important cards for them.
Yeah, like this is my basically main focus, like just building decks, right? If you're gonna get a deck that like looks like a deck, you can maybe get away with like missing some of the picks.
Yeah.
And honestly, like my honest opinion on everything is people overthink drafting. Like from what I've seen, most of the like we get so many info in that like most of the players are just like decent drafters. Like compared to like what there was, I don't know, where there was no Magic Arena.
Mm-hmm.
People know how to draft, like people know how to read signals. But they maybe like would benefit more from putting more energy or more focus on like how to actually play the game of Magic. Like you win, there's so many, like it's not only drafting, right? Like the actual gameplay is where it's at, and you maybe like can win with a pile sometimes just by playing better.
Yeah. Do you think that you get to this relaxed attitude from the fact that you also play constructed? So not only you improvise your play style, the deck playing itself, because in constructed, I think the play style itself is more complex. You have more variations. You have maybe more decisions to make.
Also on that, like, sorry to interrupt you, but for instance, like it's interesting that like actually constructed gameplay is more, you can learn the patterns. A lot of the patterns you can learn, but in limited you have to think like on the spot, right? The actual I don't know, like in constructed you can just like say, okay, I'm the aggressor because I'm playing against control, it's better to attack, right? In limited that's not obvious. Even if you're like a aggressive deck, they start with a 2-drop if they are control, right? They're the one beating down first. You might not, you need to figure out if it's correct to attack or not to attack. Like that's just an example. But from that, like on that, like that actually you can transfer from limited into constructed. This on the spot thinking, because sometimes it's gonna come down, especially in mirrors, like especially in mirrors that are like board based, like I don't know, aggro mirrors. You're gonna have this like perspective of when to stay back, when to attack, and like this on the spot thinking. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say
so
that
would
it's
you say
not
that
always that constructed gameplay is more like both. I think both ways it transfers to each format.
Would you say that constructed is more complex then? I feel that you can make an argument in both ways.
Yeah, I mean it's more pre-prep for constructed. You have to have more repetition. I don't think you can figure out constructed on the spot without knowing the format. You know what I mean?
For sure.
You have to pick a deck, play a few games, maybe even get a perspective from someone that mastered that deck, right? To know how to play with it. Because some decisions are just like for instance, like in limited, you have to figure out each game on your own. And you can do that. It's not as complicated as you would put yourself in a position, play a random deck in constructed, and not knowing any of the like outside information. You're gonna fail with it. It's like so hard to process that, like all the info that's happening there and all the complexity.
I feel that you could argue both ways. For instance, in constructed, it's really hard work to know the meta and know what you're playing against and know those patterns that you referred. I know this from experience. I'm super casual, of course, but there was a time I focused a bit on standard, and I focused on having a good deck and really trying to perform and going to these Grand Prixes and so on. And it was around Ravnica. I was playing Grixis, so best of 3, you kind of a control deck, and I remember that I had to really tinker the list according to the meta and according to what I would expect to face, and I will tinker the list according, okay, my deck is a bit weak against this, I want to improve my matchup against these specific decks, I'm going to put this card, and so on. And that's very complex. That needs you to be on top of the game, to always read, to stay up to date. And that's difficult. And in limited, you don't have this, but as you said also very well, you have to react to the board. And that's not a pattern that you learn necessarily. That's just your instinct sometimes. You have to know what is the good decision based on what you pop there.
Like usually you can come down to logical conclusions because like it's layering, right? You can think like mind functions, and it also depends like how experienced are, like how well you know the game, obviously. But like you can, like especially now that I'm teaching, I see teaching Magic. I see how some people are like can just think like turns in advance and stuff like that, and layering up like I'm gonna make this play, then it's gonna impact that play. This is gonna be better for next turn, and also reacting to your opponent, right? And that's not even that instinctive. I mean, you get some things like neutralized because they happen so often, right? That's probably the instinct you're referring to, right?
Yes, but even the kind of blockers that you make, or which creature are you going to bump, which creature are you going to let die, do you take the 5 damage? With more unpredictable boards in Limited, I think those decisions might matter a bit more, or might be more or harder to predict. I don't know if this makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, but I also think it's not really like often you can come to conclusions. Like you're not just making a decision in the dark, if that's what you mean.
No, absolutely not. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like there's many layers, and there's going to be many consequences to your decision. So if you make one bad decision, if you make one bad block, then or if you take too much damage, then you're going to be on the clock against some flyers, and you're going to lose your tempo. Things like this.
Yeah.
That are very hard.
That's really complicated, and I think this aspect, like, it's harder in Limited, but in Constructed it's more like about like knowing the play patterns. You have to prepare, you have to put time in, right? You have to even play the deck a lot to put yourself into scenarios, because they're gonna be similar scenarios all the time. So like in this, like playing on the spot, yeah, it's gonna be way harder in Limited, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. One interesting thing I also wanted to talk about was about the Alchemy set that is now in Arena. So not only we have 2 dimensions to this, we have the Streets of New Capenna Alchemy, the draft, and we are going to have an Alchemy set. And you played the Alchemy Streets of New Capenna, right? I think I saw some streams of you playing it.
Yeah, I probably did play it. I did play some Alchemy. And now I'm kind of like more on the side, like I'm trying to avoid it if possible, because the cards are, my opinion is that the cards they add in dictate the format too much, right? It's really hard to just like, you kind of have to play the cards they add in, because they are too strong. At least some number of them in a deck. So those cards will dictate the decks. But yeah, to your point, I did play some.
No, that's what I was wanting to get into, just about your perspectives on this idea of having Alchemy. Because I believe that one of the intentions of Alchemy, at least how they market this, is to provide a mechanism to give balance to the set. Or in this case, to provide a mechanism to balance a set for drafting. You have the same cards that are used in Constructed and in Limited, and if in theory, if you have Alchemy, you can keep the card for Standard and then make a tweaked version that is fair for Limited. This could be the idea or the good intention or just the PR that they give us, but the moment that these Alchemy cards are busted, and some of them are, and I was watching you play, for instance, one deck with Arming Gala, the enchantment that puts creatures on everything you have on your deck.
Yeah.
That card is super broken. So you really have to play this card. So does Alchemy actually balance Streets of New Capenna, or it just skewed the power curve?
But the problem is they didn't really, like, I think how this like balancing would be really beneficial for Arena would be if they didn't add like more powerful cards. They either add equally powerful cards, right? But the real balancing gets when they actually just balance the existing cards. They didn't need to add anything, right? They just needed to balance the existing cards. For instance, like you just fix some of the problems with New Capenna and you make it a great format. Which, by the way, I think like everybody is now on the agreement that New Capenna is one of the less balanced format, and either you like it or not, like it's also not the most popular format right now.
Okay, just a curious note on that. I remember a comment by Lola Man that said that was inevitable to happen because Neo was a great set. So Streets of New Capenna has this unluck of coming after Neo, which gives it an unfair comparison, or it puts the standards too high?
I really hated Neo. I think I even liked New Capenna more than Neo.
Oh, okay.
At the beginning, at least. Like, now I hate New Capenna, maybe even more. But Neo wasn't like a fun set to me. The problem with Neo was that there were literally just 3 archetypes. Like, really, the real archetypes you faced. I mean, you could draft like samurais, but they weren't good. But it was red, good stuff, and ninjas, basically. And problem is, all the good stuff decks had the same cards. So each game you face the same cards. Like, you face Oaths, you face Beholds, you face you just played against the same deck like each game, and that like made it completely boring, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, some people will disagree, and I think I will disagree as well. I think Neo had amazing diversity. Of course, those were the busted cards, the Beholds, the Oaths. But I think you could make anything work, really.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm like, I mean, I don't want to convince anybody into having a different opinion. It's completely fine. That's my opinion. Everybody can have its own, right?
And I don't disagree. Like, completely fine. Every opinion is personal, and every experience of the set is personal. So perfectly valid, no problem. So this was just to say that you think that Streets of New Capenna is a bad set and it needs balancing. So what exactly does it mean?
So yeah, on that point, yeah. I think like it would be better if they made like alchemy changes to the actual cards, right? So I don't know, for instance, either nerf Overseer, right, or even I don't know, like maybe even like adding a card like Overseer or Jewel Thief, or I guess Blue had the Echo Inspector, which was almost there with the Overseer, right, at common. But like when you look at Black and Red, they do have like good commons, but they don't have like a 2-for-1 commons. They have Murder and Strangle. So they would maybe need to like add either try to add Black or Red like a busted common, or like nerf one of the banned commons, or even like balance the multicolor cards a bit. But yeah, like there's not much needed to be done, and it could be like a really, really good set, I think.
So this will be your expectation of what Alchemy should do, and not just put even more rares that are going to...
I mean, I would want that for Alchemy to do, but I think why they're adding all these powerful cards in and adding like new cards, because they want to make changes exciting, right?
And they probably want to sell the new cards. They want to
sell the new cards as well. But I wouldn't mind them adding new cards if they weren't more powerful than the other ones. Like, I don't think we're gonna get a set like just added a random alchemy card to an existing booster. I think the new set is gonna be actual alchemy set for drafting. I think that's gonna be a bit different, right? Because the problem, guess, if there's like one alchemy card added to the existing set, like it was in New Capenna Alchemy, because that one card was almost like, I don't know, 90% of the time was just more powerful than anything else in the booster. And that's not balancing stuff. Like, basically, they did the complete opposite with Alchemy. They basically made the things less balanced in terms of drafting, right?
Yeah. So, like, it exacerbated, or it made bigger the problem that was already. Would you be okay or open to the idea of Alchemy as rebalancing the already existing cards? Or would you prefer them to not exist or interfere with the limited experience at all?
Honestly, if it was done well, I wouldn't mind. But on the other hand, like, there's some edginess to not changing stuff and doing it like the old ways, right? And that means also like more pre-prep has to be done from their side, from the creator side, right? To test the format out. And I don't know, I think like that's maybe a better solution. Because like every other like, then you're making Magic like on every other basically trading card game existing for like PC platform, right? You're like Hearthstone is like that. They change cards, right? I don't really play other card games, but like from what I heard, right? In other cards game they change cards all the time, like according to like if it's too powerful or not too powerful, right?
Like a hero in a MOBA, for instance.
Yeah, so I kind of like the idea that Magic was different, or is still like this old school game. I kind of like that, but I don't know. I wouldn't mind if the alchemy, like rebalancing, would be done in a tasteful way.
Yeah, so we
Basically.
will prefer things to kind of remain more or less the same.
Yeah, because then it also gets like more challenging for the creators. Like they need to put more work in before the set gets out if they want the set to succeed. And that's like they will put more effort into that.
They want to make money. I think that's their main motivation. And I think we
Yeah,
know
I mean,
very
like,
well right now.
yeah, but like, I mean, everything works like that. It's hard to like take anything away from that. But yeah,
one of the things that I think are currently a disadvantage with Alchemy cards is that they are going to have too much text, and I see that in the new set in the Baldur's Gate. Some cards just are walls of text, and especially that new mechanism that is specialized. I don't know if you have seen this yet.
I've seen one card that like turns into then four other cards or something like that.
5 cards. Because it's one for each color. And I thought it was only one card, but today, when I was preparing this conversation, I was looking into it in more details, and there's actually many cards with this. So it snowballs really fast. So you have one card that becomes 5 cards, and you have multiple of these cards with this mechanism. So it feels to me that the amount of learning and investment that you need to make to keep track of all these changes is growing really, really fast. And
I think I watched what's the guy again? Some content creator on YouTube, like actually explaining this so well. How Magic is already I forgot what's the guy's name, but he talked like something like in a way Magic is already complicated, and then you make it even more complicated. The problem gets that the actual layering and stuff is complicated, like thinking in terms of like how like cards combine with each other. But the problem is now you will have to spend more of your brain capacity just reading the cards and like just like actually not making sure you're not punting on one of the little lines, and now it's like the whole book of text.
Yeah. So yeah, I absolutely agree. Like it's I think it's getting to a point where it's too complex to keep track of. For instance, these cards that you can discard a card of any color and it becomes a different effect. Some of them, for instance, there was this card named Viscoria, I believe. I think it was Viscoria, that it had like 6 lines of text per color. And you can have up to 5 of these, plus the original one. And it's just too much. Let's say you are playing against a 5-color deck. How are you going to keep track of all the possibilities that you can have? So at least for my brain, maybe my brain is too small, but it's getting...
No, I'm also like really scared of that, because I'm usually bad when it comes to... I usually miss stuff on cards. I'm just like, that's just my biggest flaw, I think, like ever. I don't know, maybe I don't focus enough. And when especially like in Cube, I notice that a lot, because there like is a lot of different cards, and some of the cards you don't necessarily played with before.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem gets for me that I kind of almost assume what a card does, even though I read it, and then it does a different thing. And I punt so much on that, like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's normal. Yeah, it's normal, but yeah, I also agree.
But yeah, to your point, that's gonna get more complicated here, and that's maybe
I agree with
that
person that you were saying that you watched. That I think growing complexity in terms of text is not really good for Magic or for the format. For instance, the other mechanics like the arming galley, where you just put a counter on everything. Okay, it's broken, but it's easy to understand. You know what it does. Or the Eternals, that it reduces the cost of a card. Okay, that's easy to understand, but yeah, I think that I don't know how it will be received. Do you have any like expectations about this new set? Are you gonna play it?
Yeah, I'm gonna for sure play it, definitely. But I don't think Magic needs like Magic doesn't really lack complexity. That's the thing. I don't know why they wanna add complexity. I don't think that's gonna make it a better game.
Well, Magic is pretty complex, but not. It's complex in the interactions that you have.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the appeal of it, I think. Like that's in complex in that way, but like you said it, yeah, and we don't need more text on cards.
Yeah. And yeah. I was wondering, like, how are you going to prepare for the new set? How do you usually do when a new set comes?
So usually tier lists like we do with Draft Lab anyhow. So then that's basically my homework. I read all the cards and I rate them, and that helps a lot. And then I usually am completely wrong on a few of them, and then I correct the grading like after 1 week. So that's already like a lot of, if like an average drafter that doesn't like, it's not a content creator would do that, I think they can benefit from that a lot.
Even if they do them for themselves, like they run
for themselves. Yeah, exactly. There's like on 17 lands, I think everybody can build their own tier list. I think it has like the option.
For instance, in Streets of New Capenna, were you very wrong? Or did you get a good understanding?
I'm always wrong with some. And like I'm also making this, I'm this kind of person which likes to make sometimes just for the sake of I don't know, like just for the sake of like I don't know, making the word burn or whatever. I like to make sometimes a bold prediction on a card, like a really bold prediction. This is gonna be insanely good, and sometimes I succeed, but that also results into me a lot of times like really failing at things.
We have some we have some expressions in Portuguese that capture that, but I don't think they translate well into English. I was trying to say something, but it was going to sound very stupid. So I'll not do that. I think it's a case, yeah, like go big or go home.
But what that sorry on that, like what that actually does for you, if somebody wants to get into that, maybe listening to that, like it actually makes you rethink stuff, right? Because like sometimes you're just stubborn on your opinion, but once you like actually get down, sit back down and look at each card individually, you can it basically makes you so you change your mind, and that's a good thing. It makes you more often change your mind. I think that's a really good thing, because like being stubborn is the worst. Being stubborn on one idea that's maybe not working is the worst.
Yeah.
And also like knowing the cards better, that also helps you with doing the tier list.
That's probably one of the reasons. Like you really have to think about each card individually, and you probably don't do this alone. So if you do this with other people from Draft Lab, you are probably discussing the set, and that's a very helpful brainstorming.
Yeah, we also have like this habit of mocking each other then when somebody was wrong. So I think that's like super cool. We're not doing it in any toxic way or anything, but like just it's super fun when somebody is wrong on like a card, and then you're like, oh, how could you be that wrong on that?
Yeah, it's normal. So have you taken a look at the new set yet?
Not really. I haven't. I had seen only one card. I'll maybe like I just kind of forgot about it. Honestly, I'll look into it more probably after this interview actually.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was any path, but of course you have not looked into it yet. I've not looked into it myself. But let's see how it goes. Like I have no idea how it's going to be. It's going to be the first draftable Alchemy full set. So let's hope it goes well. And one last thing I wanted to talk to you was about the Streamer Showdown, because I think it creates an amazing opportunity not only for you guys, you content creators, but also for the audience like me, who just has the pleasure of seeing you guys play against other stacked players. It was really fun, and it was like a pro tournament that is not so common in Limited. And it's a pro tournament of people that you watch every day. It was great. So what did you think of your participation in this?
Oh, I was excited. I was really excited. Lola invited me. It was my second time. First one I think was Lola and Metafy organizing that, and then it was Lola and Esporter. It's just like I kind of first one I tilted a bit because I knew most of the people are better than I am there. So I was like I played against the streamers that I look up to, basically, or not even the streamers. Also, like there were other actual PT players there. But the challenge is so good to me. Like just accepting a challenge like that. Like I'm always up for that. I would like if I get like another invite, I'm like just canceling everything else going for the showdown.
Were you like a bit nervous about playing against?
First one, yeah. Second one, I was also like I usually get like this. First, like this is probably a normal process with everyone. Like first I get to a tournament or like this, I'm super nervous, I tilt, I make some mistakes just because I'm playing as somebody I know. then the second time I'm comfy, and then maybe the third time I'll get a bit like, let's say, cocky about it already. I'm an expert now, but
yeah, you did pretty well. You're saying this, but I think you went to the winners bracket, not winners bracket, but
day 2 basically, or whatever. The top 8 pod, yeah.
Top 8 is what you did very, very well, I would say.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with how it went. Yeah. I was like, first time, just let me get at least a win, so I won't embarrass myself.
The minimum, so that the people at Draft Lab don't have reason to shit on me.
Yeah.
What do you think that is the greatest challenge about drafting in this kind of environment? It's very different from your typical draft at Magic Arena, where you just some random people, you don't know the pod, and you're not going to play against a pod that you drafted, but in this case, you not only are surrounded by amazing players, but you're also going to find in other decks the cards that you pass. So that changes your approach. Is this very, very different from everyday
It
Magic?
gets a bit negated here because, I mean, obviously you see what you pass, but the thing is that there were open deck lists, right? So you could literally play around every card in the deck. I think that takes away something from it, honestly, but it's hard to make a tournament. We talked actually about this after the showdown because Lola asked for like opinion how he would change that maybe for the better. But to prevent cheating and everything is the best way. Like that's the most fail-proof way. So it's, I don't know. I honestly wouldn't mind being a closed deck list because I don't think those people would ever cheat, but who knows?
It makes sense that it was open. Let's say you played your matches and then you just want to hop on the streams of someone else to see just their match or see how they're doing. And if you didn't have open deck lists, you're probably saying, like, you're trying to take advantage.
That is true, but like, I mean, this is the same thing as in like PT top 8, right? When you draft, or in GP top 8 when you draft, right? Other people, when they finish first, they can watch other matches, and that's like actually sometimes okay. I mean, I don't know if it affects your drafting, but you actually benefit from playing an aggressive deck.
Yeah,
because you get to watch other people, but that's like a minimal, I think, impact. Like a better deck is still a better deck.
You could not make changes for match 1, right?
You could not make that. Yeah, it was like a normal tournament rules. This is also the same as on GP. I actually like everything else about it except the open deck list. I think that takes something away from it, just because it takes this away. Like exactly what you said. You're passing stuff. You see what other people got. So it's like another dimension to the game, right? You have to think about things that you saw during the draft. While now you don't really need to focus on that much, because you have an open deck list up.
I see.
But everything else about this, I like 100% because it's just better than arena drafting.
Okay.
It's like everything, like the pot, you play against the same pot, so if, like the boosters will be less powerful. In general, nobody will have a more powerful deck, right? It's also best of 3, which is great. Like the sideboarding matters. Even if you would go that far, hate drafting matters. Even though hate drafting is usually hurts you more than the other people, because like you're playing against, I don't know, 3 other players, but you're gonna hurt yourself, but not picking the card for your deck, right? You might not even play against a person you're hating from, right?
Yeah. I was just wondering, like, you said you were happy with your participation, so that's a great thing. That means that you probably believe that you performed close to your potential. But even though you are satisfied, are there any lessons that you learned in that experience that you would bring to your drafting experience, or anything that you would have changed?
I mean, it's like hard to apply this to arena drafting, right? Because it's pod drafting. I would definitely. I actually did. Oh no, wait! I did an arena pod analysis. I didn't do an analysis of this. I mean, I would. Obviously, there are always like single draft improvement in hindsight that I probably had some like bad feeling about some picks. I think I often have that anyhow. But you have to look also that like I did like I tried the best on that spot, right? In hindsight, it's really easy to talk like what you did wrong or not.
Inside, you mean?
I was actually really happy with my plays. I was happy with my plays. but maybe the drafting I could, especially day 2. I know I wasn't happy with some picks. Like when I looked at the back at the draft, I would make some picks differently. But this is more like bad decision making, basically. I need to get better at the game.
Well, we are always learning, so that applies to everyone. Even the people that are at the top, the moment they stop learning is a moment where they're gonna fall from there. And as you said earlier, it's also easier to analyze things in hindsight, or knowing where you went wrong when you know what comes next. I see that in my case, for instance, that sometimes I know how a draft will go, and I know what kind of cards I will open a bit later, and I subconsciously skew or gain some bias towards that direction. Even if at the pack 1, of course, you don't know what you're going to open next. But at least for me, I feel it's subconscious, really.
One thing you have to be really way more careful in a draft like that, especially when you know there's going to be only good people, like good players drafting or skillful players drafting, is you have to be careful what you pass more than in general, because they're going to read the signal, right? So if you, like, for instance, pass like in Arena, like players won't sometimes move for like a clear signals. I don't know if like Overseer, then another white card and another white card comes to them. They like some of them will still be locked to the first bomb they pick, which was maybe blue, right? Here, people are gonna move into white if you pass like 3 white cards, and then you have to maybe just like say, okay, white is gone for me. Other people moved into white.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, fair enough. I'm very happy that you guys had this experience, and I hope that there's going to be other showdowns, and I hope that Matify or someone else sponsors it. I think it was a great initiative, and it's good to know that it was as good for you as it was for us, the viewers. It was as fun to participate. And before we conclude, one last thing is about the Draft Lab. I heard about it, but I don't know much about it. Would you like to explain a bit what it is about, what kind of community it is, and who created it?
So, first of all, it started with basically, I think, Akil and Floridamon started that. So, like, it was a streamer, like, it's basically a streamer's team, right?
Streamer team.
Which includes me, Floridamon, Akil, Josh, J2 Josh, Ike, and Tajordan. I don't know if maybe you can check those streamers out, whoever's watching this. And it's also, we have our own this Draft Lab Discord where everybody can join, and we're basically like interacting there. People are active there, sharing their picks, sharing their draft knowledge, sharing their, I don't know, questions about drafts. And it's not even only us answering, right? It's like people interacting between each other. It's supposed to be a draft community, right? Or we're aiming to be like a big draft community. And now we're pretty happy where it's going. Plus we're like doing the tier lists and stuff, right, together. We're sometimes collaborating on some streams, which is maybe less often than I would like, because it's a bit awkward, because we're like like half of the team is American, half of the team is European, or Akil and me is European, other are Americans. So it's like a time difference and stuff. Josh writes a lot for MTG Arena Zone, so all the MTG Arena Zone limited content is from Draft Lab. I didn't write a limited article. I wrote a constructed article there. Nice. But Iki, I know, wrote something, and Akil has an article as well. So you can check also MTG Arena Zone for basically the Draft Lab knowledge passed to the world. There's there, and that's about it. I mean, there are future projects planned. We also do like tournaments here and there. We hosted 2 big like money prize draft tournaments, and I think like there were 64 people participating. We usually do like 8 pots, right? Or was it more? I'm not sure. But we usually have like a limit, so we have like even-ish number of, not even-ish, but like enough pots, right? It has to be 8 people in pots, and then like a winner gets to the top 8 pot, right? So we reduce down then players, and then there's another pot. But will be right now nothing is planned on the tournament part, so
that's a great way to involve the community to make these tournaments, especially in the last 2 years where people were not playing paper Magic, it was amazing that if they have an opportunity to draft against other people in an organized environment.
Yeah, and we did it like first time we did it really like in a really like, we didn't know what we were doing, but at the end like we had like a lot of stress like behind the scenes. We were like, okay, how do you pair that person? Where do we put that person in the pot? Oh, somebody is missing. Oh, we didn't really take that into account, like because people don't show up, right? They sign in but they don't show up. Then we had to fill in with other people, so we had like we had to fill the pods. That's the whole idea, right? 8 people per pod, and then the problem gets when 3 people are missing. How do you do that? So we had to get people in, but like I think players had a good time. We had a stressful time, and second time around we were more used to that. We had kind of pre-prepared for like this little things that can go wrong, and it went better. but but I hope the next one will be even better. Yeah.
Are there any plans for a next tournament? Like overall,
we talked about New Capenna, but I think everybody like was so tired of the format that like then we just the talks just disappeared. So there definitely will be more tournaments, right? The last one was even, I think the MTG Arena Zone sponsored the last one, so we got some money prizes in.
Very cool, very very cool. Okay, man, it was amazing to get to know you and to try to understand your mind and how your play style goes for both constructed and limited. I really appreciate your time and you coming on. It has been very fun and very exciting for me to learn from you. Thank you very much. Is there any last message you want to say to the people?
Well, first, I want to thank you for inviting me to this and for meeting you. Also, it was nice meeting you. And for everybody else, I don't know, just like I would really like for people to not be too like one-dimensional with their mindset. Try to explore, basically. try to get out of your comfort zone, especially when drafting. And you're gonna figure out different approaches and different stuff, basically.
Yeah, it makes very much sense. Not only in Magic, but in everything. Try to be open to the possibilities.
True.
Yeah, it was wonderful to have you, man. See you some other time. Hopefully, maybe to discuss some other set. But I hope to talk to you again someday. And until then, best of luck to you.
Yeah, best of luck, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Take care.